Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the legal and government correspondent, and as we've been doing over the last month or two is interviewing legislators or would-be legislators. In this case, it's the congressional race for the 7th Congressional District, and my guest today is Tricia Zunker. Tricia, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And I guess we should start off by saying you are running as a Democrat. There is a Democratic primary. That primary election date is February 18th. Before we get into the issues and why you're running, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, a little bit about your family and your background?
Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Wausau, which is in Marathon County and part of the 7th Congressional District. I am a member of Ho-Chunk Nation. I am Ho-Chunk on my dad's side, and I come from generations of dairy farmers on my mom's side. My grandpa had a dairy farm in the town of Easton. He farmed until his body just couldn't farm any longer. I come from a strong union household. My mom is a member of USW Local 2-224. She's been a union member for over 30 years, and when I was 12 years old, I was out on the picket lines with her when James River was striking here in Wausau for over 2 weeks. And in fact, speaking of United Steelworkers, I just last week received the endorsement from the United Steelworkers District 2 for this candidacy. I am a first-generation college graduate. I went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I earned a triple major and a certificate in 4 years. And I point that out because it's not something that's easy to do in 4 years. It's a lot of juggling, course overloads, and actually having the foresight as a senior in high school to take advanced placement classes to be able to test out, get the college credit, and actually be able to have sophomore standing in my freshman year, second semester. I did that through help from my tribe, Ho-Chunk Nation. They had provided me with some educational grants through scholarships, through financial aid, and I worked 2 jobs to get through college. I come from very humble beginnings, and I knew my parents wouldn't be able to help me in that endeavor of earning a college degree, but it worked out and worked out very well. And then I went to law school. I went to law school at UCLA, and I chose UCLA because of their stellar federal Indian law and tribal legal development program. As a Ho-Chunk woman, it was important for me to be able to gain that education and experience and bring it back here, which is exactly what I did. I practiced law for a number of years out there, but then an opportunity arose in my tribe, and that was a special election. And that was for the position of Associate Justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court. I was the underdog, but I campaigned very hard. And for those that don't know, Ho-Chunk Nation is the only tribe of the 11 federally recognized tribes here in Wisconsin that doesn't have reservation land. Our land is held in trust in kind of what I'd say pockets around the state. So I was flying home and I was campaigning in Wittenberg and Nakusa, and then flying back to California to do my regular job to support my family. I'm a solo parent. And then flying back to campaign in Baraboo and Black River Falls. And so I was campaigning all throughout the state for this tribal election. And if that wasn't foreshadowing to what I am doing now, because this congressional district is 26 counties, it's 1/3 of the state, that was really good practice. Well, I campaigned hard back then, and the tribal elders say that I set a new standard for campaigning in the Ho-Chunk Nation. And in fact, I prevailed. And after that term was completed, I prevailed again. I'm currently serving my 2nd term as Associate Justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court. Well, not long after I was first elected, made my way back to Wisconsin, first living in Wisconsin Dells on some Ho-Chunk lands called Indian Heights with my son. And then we made our way back to Wausau. My grandpa, the dairy farmer that I referenced, was getting to be in his last years. And I said, I'm never going to regret bringing my son home to be my grandpa. And it's true. He was called home last year, and I'm so glad that we got those last few years with him. Well, my son was just starting kindergarten when we moved back here to Wausau. So if you're following, I'm born and raised in Wausau, out getting education and experience, made my way back. That's where I am to this day. Well, early on, when we were just moved back home, my son was starting kindergarten, and I was really shocked and alarmed at the child poverty that I was reading about here in the community. And I reached out to some local organizations so I could learn more. I was really shocked to find out about the food insecurity that our children suffer here. So I went to the school board and I asked them to do more. You know, we have students that get the free and the reduced breakfast and lunch at school, That's all they know they're going to get. And this idea that we have students that, not even ideas, is what happens. They know they're going to have that, come Friday lunch. They don't know where their next meal is going to come from until Monday morning back at school again. So I went as a local mom and I advocated to do more. I worked with my son's elementary school to get a small food pantry up and running, but wanted to do more. Well, I said I could do more than just advocate as a citizen. So I actually got my name on the ballot to run for school board, and I campaigned very hard again. And I knocked on 3,500 doors, and I unseated an incumbent. And I am now the school board president for the Wausau School District. So that is a little bit about me and my background. Why I'm running, that takes us to where we are today. Well, truth be told, this is something that I had considered. I was thinking about possibly 2022, depending on, what was going to happen this year. I had my own personal things in mind. My son would be a little bit older. He's 9 now. And, I really enjoy the meaningful service that I do both for Ho-Chunk Nation and the Wausau community as the school board president. So I thought, well, down the road, I'll continue to do these jobs for now. But then, Sean Duffy resigned, and so here we are. And I decided the time is now. And even though that means multiple elections in 1 year, sometimes I've never been one to not take on a challenge. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm running because there are so many reasons. Really, we need
Tell me a little bit about what are those reasons.
Well, we need real representation.
So I'm running for a number of reasons. We have this farm crisis, right? As the granddaughter of a dairy farmer, it is personally heartbreaking to see the number of farms that are going bankrupt, and the fact that we have a farmer suicide rate that we just need to do more for our farmers. I was at the Wisconsin Farmers Association annual convention just last weekend. I was actually the only candidate for the 7th Congressional District that was there. There were Supreme Court candidates, congressional candidates for other races, presidential candidates, surrogates, and about a third of the attendees at the event that I was at were from the 7th Congressional District. So I was able to speak with them and hear concerns and talk about some of the things that we need to do. I mean, we need to ensure access to competitive markets. We need to address the oversupply situation. We shouldn't have our farmers dumping milk down drains in the backs of their barns. We need to eliminate predatory business practices that hurt our farmers. We need to ensure funding for mental health assistance because our farmers need to have resources if they want to pursue those resources. We need to support our small businesses, because when we support our small businesses, we support our small and mid-sized farmers. And we need to ensure broadband access. I was at a farm in Lincoln County not too long ago, and I was talking to the farmer there about broadband and this isn't something unique to farmers. We need this generally speaking. Our students need it. Our small business needs to make sure that we have reliable broadband. Our law enforcement, without it, we're deprived of opportunity, and it's a safety issue. So those are a few reasons as it relates to the farm crisis. It's not even just dairy farmers, by the way. Ginseng is a big deal here in Marathon County. I know it seems far away from you there, 3 hours away, but we're the same congressional district. And here in Marathon County, most of the ginseng from the United States comes from Marathon County. So the day I announced I was running, which was October 14th, 2019, my first stop after the press conference I held at the Eau Claire Dells of Wisconsin was over to a ginseng farm in Edgar, Wisconsin at Sachka Ginseng. And I learned about how the tariffs were affecting them and the fact that they didn't know, what are we going to do this year? We were sitting on product that should have been long gone. So, we really have to look out for our farmers. So that's one reason. Healthcare is another big issue. I mean, we need to ensure affordable, accessible healthcare. Nobody should die because they can't afford the treatment they need. Nobody should go bankrupt because of a medical situation. The cost of deductibles is still way too high. We need to ensure that people with pre-existing conditions are covered without penalty. And we need to take on big pharma. I worked in intellectual property early in my legal career, and it is really upsetting to see big pharma get away with charging us here in America 10 times what they are charging for that same exact drug or medication in another country. But they're getting away with it. And largely because they're buying seats in Congress. We need campaign finance reform desperately. I don't accept corporate PAC money. I think we need to overturn Citizens United. We need to get the corporate money out of our elections. It's buying way too many seats in Congress. Once we do that, we're going to make progress on a lot of issues.
Let me press you a little bit on that, the big pharma, as you put it.
Okay.
Because we're taping this segment here on February 5th. So last night, Tuesday, February 4th, was the State of the Union address by President Trump. And he specifically mentioned that he wanted to work on reducing pharmaceutical prices and getting legislation passed. And about around that time in his speech, then there was a chant from the crowd, and I believe it was from the Democrats, talking about H.R. 3, which is a bill that has already passed Congress, has been sitting in the Senate, and that would drastically reduce pharmaceutical prices.
Yes. Yes. I don't know that I would say it's sitting in the Senate. I would say it's sitting in Mitch McConnell's legislative graveyard. So I support H.R. 3 that would drastically reduce the cost on 250 medications and drugs, but it's not going anywhere.
Well, what do you think if President Trump gets behind it, as he sounds like he is, he's for reducing drug prices? Do you see progress being made, maybe even before you're elected on that?
Well, I hope so, but he also said he was going to bring troops home when he was running for president, and we just see more and more being sent overseas. So I'm glad that he said that last night. I was actually teaching. I have to continue to work my jobs while I'm campaigning full-time plus, so I can support my household as a solo parent. And I was not able to watch that.
I think you mentioned where you teach. Can you repeat that, please? Because I just wanted to make.
I teach at 3 schools. I teach at California School of Law, which is where I was teaching last night, and I teach at Colorado State University Global Campus, and I teach at University of Maryland, and I serve the Ho-Chunk Nation as Associate Justice on the Ho-Chunk Supreme Court. I serve on 2 boards, and I'm running full-time plus for Congress. So I was not able to watch that, but I mean, I would like to see that happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So it's something that I'm very strongly campaigning on, because this is not a controversial issue. I don't think anybody's going to say, I want to continue to pay skyrocketing costs on my prescription drugs. It's wrong. I have talked to seniors that are forced to ration their medication because they're on a fixed income, and these prescription drug costs continue to go up.
Well, ever since Medicare Part D was passed under George W. Bush administration, was passed at a time, bipartisan, but of course with no funding mechanism for it, and a specific prohibition of negotiating with pharmaceutical companies. And that's stayed in place, and it's been through the rest of Bush presidency, all of Obama. Nobody has done anything to change that prohibition of negotiating. Is that something that you would advocate?
Well, I think so. I mean, that seems like that's a logical starting point.
Okay. Well, we mentioned drug prices and healthcare and the farm crisis. What other issues do you see as something that you're hearing out on the campaign trail that people would like to see some attention be given to?
Well, the environment. I mean, we need to make sure that we have clean air, clean water, and protect our beautiful lands from corporate greed for generations to come. We need to address this climate emergency with the urgency that it requires. We need to listen to the scientists. We need to listen to the experts, and we need to take care of our planet. And this is something that we can do all different ways. We don't have to have separate legislation just addressing the environment. So we talk about the farm crisis. Well, we can have incentives for use of sustainable renewable energy. We have to get creative and start thinking outside the box. And this again, it's going to go back to campaign finance reform. And why we aren't moving faster on this and progressing and thinking about alternative ways for clean energy, because the fossil fuel industry is buying seats in Congress, and Big Ag is buying seats in Congress. And, campaign finance reform is so critical. we're not going to achieve a government that's reflective of society until we have campaign finance reform. I mean, I'm sitting here, I've mentioned that I'm a solo parent and I'm running, and it's a lot of work. I'm balancing a lot. But when I'm elected to serve Wisconsin 7, I'll actually double the population of current single parents in Congress. And I point that out just to point out the fact that, that doesn't sound what society looks like, but it's hard to do when we don't have campaign finance reform. And, I don't accept corporate PAC money. And when other campaigns have dark money funneling in, it's really, it keeps out people that would be really effective representatives. And speaking of representation in Congress, when I am elected to serve Wisconsin 7, I will actually be the first Native American, specifically Ho-Chunk, to represent Wisconsin in Congress. And I will be the first woman to represent Wisconsin 7 in Congress. And I'm not asking people to vote for me because I'm a woman. I'm asking them to vote for me because I'm a qualified woman who's going to get the job done. But women's issues are human issues, and it is high time that our girls and our women see themselves reflected in congressional leadership. And you know who else needs to see that? Our boys. It's 2020. It shouldn't be historic that a woman wins this seat, but it will be. But representation matters. And these things that we talk about, campaign finance reform is really at the base of it.
Okay. And appreciate you introducing the campaign finance reform. It's very important. And another aspect of democracy, if you will, or a block to democracy, is the redistricting. And you recognize the 7th Congressional District underwent quite a change with the 2010 census. We're going to have one now in 2020. But the way that 7th District was refigured and simultaneously 3rd District was reconfigured, do you really think a Democrat has a chance in the 7th Congressional District?
I think that we are more alike than we are different here in the 7th Congressional District. And I think what's really important is that I am getting out and I am talking to people, Democrats, independents, Republicans, and we have so much in common, shared values. This idea that people shouldn't struggle. And I think that there's a lot at stake on the ballot. It might say my name, but there's a lot at stake. It's the farm crisis, it's healthcare, it's lowering the cost of prescription drugs, it's protecting the environment, it's making sure that we invest in our children, invest in our public schools, it's campaign finance reform, it's criminal justice reform. All of these things are very reasonable, and it's reasons to vote for Tricia Zunker. But when you talk about gerrymandering, that is a frustrating aspect as well. I mean, politicians shouldn't be able to pick their voters. This is not controversial, but yet they seem to get away with it. And I think, I get out and I've been all throughout this district. I have put thousands upon thousands of miles on my vehicle, and I've put just as many minutes on my phone, making phone calls, connecting with people and establishing relationships. But when it comes down to a topic that maybe we haven't discussed, and somebody wonders, well, I wonder how Tricia Zunker would come out on that. I can tell you there's 3 principles that guide my decision making. Number 1, compassion. Is this the compassionate response? Number 2, equality. It doesn't matter what somebody looks like, who they love, or how they identify their gender. Does this legislation protect them equally? And number 3, opportunity. Does this result in the most equitable and inclusive opportunity for people to have a chance at success? And that third one is particularly meaningful for me, because if you were to look at me on paper, I come from very humble beginnings, and people wouldn't think, oh, she's going to end up doing all of these things in her life. But I did, because there were opportunities that were presented to me and I seized on them. And maybe somebody else would have looked the other way, and that's fine for them. But I saw those opportunities even as a child, even as a teenager, even as a young adult, and I seized on them. And I know how different life can be. And I feel a duty and an obligation to give back. I believe in public service, and I believe we need representatives that have a lens, not just on themselves, but on those that don't have a voice, on those that need a fair shot, need that opportunity. So that's why I'm running.
Okay. Well, and we're talking here with Tricia Zunker, who is running as a Democrat in the 7th Congressional District. The primary is February 18th, and the general election is May 12th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And off camera, you were pretty confident that you're going to be there in that general election on May 12th. You've already picked up the party endorsement. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I do have the primary, so please do get out and vote, but I fully expect to be on the ballot on May 12th as well.
Okay, so anticipating that, and if we don't get another chance to chat here, we'll be using this interview to replay at our local cable stations here over in the western side of your district. What would set you apart then from either of the two Republican candidates that are running?
Well, I mean, I think we've pretty much covered it in my approach to decision making. My background is different. I have a legal background. I have a demonstrated record of public service, both with my community, Ho-Chunk Nation, and within the Wassa community. I have a lifelong record of hard work and just the way that I approach decision making. And something that I am fully committed to doing is working across the aisle to develop bipartisan solutions that make life better for everybody here in Wisconsin. That is something that I am hearing time and again on the campaign trail. Like I said, I'm getting all over the place. And something I am hearing is just a level of frustration, a level of just, why even bother? You know, people are tired of the attacks. They're tired of the gridlock. I am too. I don't intend to be divisive. And this is in fact something that I do even in my work on the school board. Now we're technically nonpartisan seats, but you know where people fall. And I actually work the best with individuals that are politically different side of the spectrum than me. And the way that we do that is through respectful communication, listening, looking at facts, the numbers, the data, and saying, how do we achieve the best result for our district, for our community? And that's something that I'm prepared to do as the Congresswoman for Wisconsin 7. I just want to get to work, make things better here. I do not want to engage in this, attacks and all of that. That's not going to help anybody. So I think I bring just a lot of different things to the table.
All right. And just for people to understand, because you've mentioned some major issues, and in a minute we're going to give folks your website and how they can learn more about you and possibly get involved in your campaign. But where would you characterize yourself then as people are watching this? They want to know what this person's general platform would fall. Would you be very conservative Democrat, a moderate Democrat, liberal, very liberal, as far over as Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, or where would you be on that spectrum?
I have not characterized myself. I mean, we could talk about issues and address each and every one of those. And if you want to characterize me, but I don't think that I fall within just a very straight and narrow line. I mean, it depends, on the specific issue.
Okay, fair enough. So it would depend on the issue, and we see people who, obviously it depends on the issue as it comes up, like the pharmaceutical prices, healthcare. And imagine, from the school standpoint, there's another issue that was mentioned in the State of the Union last night was the potential for billions of federal tax dollars to be funneled into private education.
No.
And is that something that you would see as an advancement for education overall?
No,
I think it's characterized as freedom for parents to be able to get their kids out of failing government schools, is the way that President Trump put it.
So I do not support that. As the school board president for the 13th largest school district in the state of Wisconsin, I can tell you wholeheartedly that public dollars should fund public education. Now, if parents and guardians want to send their children to different schools, that's their choice and they should be able to do that. But our tax dollars should fund our schools. And, they're not failing, and we need to actually invest in our children and make sure that they have the resources that they need and give them the quality public education that they deserve so that they can have an opportunity in life at success.
And with your unique, I've served on school board here in Hudson, and in that position, you get to see the ability to have local control. Would you, in this position, with efforts to maybe downsize the federal education department, do you think we should be pumping more federal tax dollars and more federal control into our local school districts, or to keep that local emphasis as we have historically in Wisconsin?
I think that some support from federal tax dollars would be ideal, but that does not mean taking away any control. I mean, you serve on the school board, I serve on the school board. We know that we have to try to make the best use of the limited funds that we get from the state. Our students need more. There's always something that is still really important that they need for that quality education. But I'm not advocating for downsizing the Department of Education by any means, or taking away local control.
And how about in higher education? You have a unique perspective as both an educator in multiple states and having gone to school in multiple states. Do you see federal government having a role there?
Well, I think that we should do everything that we can to make higher education affordable and accessible for those who want it. Sometimes we're hearing from lawmakers that talk about, it was how they got themselves through school, decades ago, when the tuition was much, much cheaper than it is today. If we were to do the comparison, it's just gone up at skyrocketing rates. I mean, even I look at, when I went to law school, I think it's double now. And it wasn't that long ago that I graduated. So I think that we need to do everything we can to ensure that we make it affordable and accessible. And we need to promote the trade schools more. I mean, this narrative that college is for everyone is not the reality, because we need people in all facets of society for a thriving society. And there are just amazing jobs in the highly skilled and technical fields. I recently did a tour at the technical college here in Wausau, and to really see firsthand not just the impact on the students, but the impact on the community. Because when you educate, the highly skilled and technical labor force, oftentimes that talent pool stays local then. And I'm going to be touring at Nicolay College, also in the 7th Congressional District, in about 10 days or so, and excited to see their programs and how it benefits their community. But that's something we need to do as well.
So you see a big role in education when people talk about jobs. Education should be right there in the conversation.
Absolutely. We should provide opportunities, and that's going to look different, whether it's four-year school, four-year college or technical college. And is that a one-year program or a two-year program or a certificate? But something, absolutely. We should do everything we can to provide those opportunities for people that want to pursue them.
All right. I want to give you this opportunity now, Tricia, to mention your website, Facebook page, and so forth, so that people can get to know more about you. Because I think we could talk for another half hour, but our time is
Sure.
getting close to the end here. So,
well, there's so many issues. I agree. So thank you. Yes, my website is www.triciaforwisconsin.com. My name is spelled Tricia, for Wisconsin, written out in full.com. I have a Facebook page. It's very active. You can go to the search bar and type in Tricia Zunker for Wisconsin, pull it up, like it, follow it, invite all your friends. I have Twitter. The handle is Tricia4WI. And I also am on Instagram with that same handle. I'm not sure if that's what it's called. Like I said, I'm trying to get better with Instagram. But okay. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to connect with me. You can even email me directly, Tricia@triciaforwisconsin.com. I will reply. It might not be the same day, but I will reply.
Well, it sounds like you're very busy. Got one of the larger congressional districts in the Midwest.
Yes.
Certainly the largest in Wisconsin. And so I hope your car holds out for the remainder of the election. And if there's, want to remind our viewers to keep watching the news and follow you on your website. I want to thank you for appearing here today.
Well, thank you. I know you're busy as well, and I appreciate your time. And I just have to say that 2 days ago, I drove up to Ashland, Bayfield again. I had recently done a visit, and I was meeting with the Red Cliff Tribal Council and meeting with the group in Ashland, and drove back the same day. And then Tuesday morning, going to take my son to school. Wouldn't you know it, my car was dead. So it's funny you say that, because at least it didn't happen when I was up in Ashland or Bayfield or Red Cliff. But yeah, I think it'll hold up. But thanks. I appreciate your good thoughts. I appreciate the time. And, me hopefully before the general election, if I'm in the area, maybe we can do this in person.
We'll look forward to that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for your time. We'll let you get back to your teaching and your judgeship there. And I want to thank all the viewers for watching Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson. Thank you for watching.